Belonging and identity, power narratives, and the inheritance of shame. Welcome to Echoes and Vestiges, a podcast where we deep dive into the narratives that shape our identities and how we can navigate and challenge the systems that feel confining to us. Today's episode unpacks two questions that are as old as time. What does it mean to belong? And how do systems of power shape our understanding of identity? When we hear or think of belonging, what comes into mind? At the core of the human existence is the need to belong. We are social creatures, wired for connection, who need validation and to feel safe within the communities we are part of. Belonging is external. It's about how we are received by people, how we fit in within our family units, our cultures, and our belief systems. It's about getting affirmation and acceptance from the groups we are part of. Identity, on the other hand, is internal. It's the deeply personal way we navigate and understand who we are at our core, independent of outside expectations. In many societies, identity is shaped through rigid structures of power. To clarify, these structures in power are patriarchal. The patriarchy is a social system where men predominantly hold positions of authority, as seen in leadership roles within the family unit, in religious institutions, socioeconomic, and political spheres. Patriarchal structures dictate what is normal, what is acceptable, who is worthy of respect or reverence within our society. They define gender roles, religious traditions, economic class, and sexual norms. People who control these narratives hold immense power that extends over institutions like the government, places of worship like churches, mosques, temples, and the schools we go to or we take our kids to. The most dangerous space to have this much concentration of power is in the homes, where they are able to control the narrative within family dynamics at the expense of people who are taught that deviation from the expected gender roles in the patriarchal hierarchy equals suppression or exile. When your identities challenge the status quo and disrupt the hierarchy imposed by patriarchy, you will get policed by the dominant group. At this point, the need to belong conflicts directly with personal identity. What happens now to a person when their belonging to a particular group is at the cost of self-abandonment? Why are we forced to shrink, to be silent, to ignore parts of ourselves in order to be accepted? Why do people care so much about how others choose to live their lives? The answer lies in control. According to H.E. Barnes, social institutions are the machinery that govern different aspects of societal life. They are the gatekeepers to people. These institutions are religion, family units, education system, media that you consume, and politics. All this make up the machinery of control in a patriarchal society that dictates how people should behave, who they should love, who they should marry, or what they should believe in matters of faith. Many cultural and religious practices began as a way to protect and guide the society, but today these institutions serve as tools to police and regulate behavior. This control of the masses extends across multiple dimensions of identity, including gender, religion, sexuality, socioeconomic status, and ability or disability. Gender in patriarchal system is very fixed, binary, and hierarchical. Masculinity is associated with leadership and dominance. Femininity is linked to obedience, nurturing, and emotionality. This is the programming and the social conditioning obtained by everybody at a very early age. Any deviation from this gendered fixed roles, whether it's a woman rejecting submission or a man choosing to embrace his vulnerability, is met with resistance. In many cultures, men are discouraged, or rather, they are not encouraged from expressing their emotions. They are taught that they have to be strong, they have to suppress their fears to show up as masculine, and they have to dominate rather than empathize. This repression manifests as a mental health crisis. Men have higher suicide rates worldwide, yet they are the least likely to seek therapy or emotional support. Women, on the other hand, who challenge authority by refusing to conform to the expected gender roles by being unmarried or choosing to pursue a career rather than choosing motherhood, are shamed and called harlots, masculine, and undesirable. The economy of shame is a term coined by Susan J. Douglas in the book The Rise of Enlightened Sexism, where media and culture is used to weaponize shame to impose unrealistic standards on women, shaping how women view themselves and their societal roles. Much of our social discord, both online and offline, centers around controlling and policing women for their body and their autonomy. Women's bodies have long been a battleground for cultural and religious debates. From enforced dress codes to expected marital performance roles, external forces dictate how women should exist in the world. A niqabi woman is harassed for covering too much, where another woman is shamed or fetishized for revealing too much. Young women who are sexually active are stigmatized for engaging in premarital sex, while young men who do the same are praised for it. Even in cases of sexual harassment and assault, blame is often placed on the woman or the other victim rather than the perpetrator of the crime. This control extends to every other aspect of women's lives: abortion debates, motherhood, marriage conversations. The question is, are grown women incapable of making decisions for themselves? This relentless policing of women's choice is not about morality or protection. It's about preserving a patriarchal hierarchy that demands submission from anyone who exists within it. The more women resist, the more aggressive the structures enforce compliance. The patriarchy cannot protect women while upholding the very system that is harming them. Who are you protecting women from when you are benefiting from the subjugation of women? In deep patriarchal society, gender fluidity is an even greater threat. Existence of people who are non-binary, transgender, people who are third gender disrupts the very foundation of this binary system. This is why LGBTQ identities are aggressively policed. They expose that gender is a construct rather than a fixed truth. History has shown that binary gender norms in our communities are not universal. Many societies recognize more than two genders long before colonialism and religious dogma enforced a strict male-female divide. In India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, the Hijras are recognized as a third gender, and they have existed for centuries, holding spiritual and cultural significance within their community. Despite the discrimination they face, they continue to exist and resist erasure. In Native American tribes, there is the existence of the Two-Spirit people, who are individuals who embody both masculine and feminine energies, and they hold a very respected role within their community. Across different societies, for women and queer individuals, the intersection of faith and personal identity creates a deep tension, and it is a source of conflict. There is a longing to remain part of the communities that you've been raised in, while still wanting to maintain personal autonomy. Yet, any woman or queer person who challenges these societal norms is very acutely aware of the risks that includes rejection, exclusion, and suppression. Religious texts for the longest time have been weaponized to control and police the sexuality of queer individuals and women. Religious communities that uphold heterosexuality, who think that a man and a woman are the only forms of love and partnership, often frame queerness as sinful, unnatural, and a threat to societal morality. In these structures, women are infantilized. Their role is subjugated to that of caregiving or being vessels for their husbands rather than autonomous beings with thoughts and identities and who have desires just like everybody else. Queer people are demonized as deviants and heretics. Queer people are blamed to threaten the moral fabric of society, as if all the problems of our communities can be placed on a singular group of people. Queerness challenges religious and cultural norms by defying rigid gender binaries and disrupting traditional power structures that dictate who gets to lead and who must obey who within the system. On the other hand, men are never held to the same restrictive standards. Instead, most of them use religious doctrine to police others while they maintain their own agencies and navigate the world free. This double standard normalizes sexual violence as a tool of dominance to enforce and reinforce a patriarchal power which actively harms those who go against it. In some faiths, religious interpretations have evolved, yet there are still others that resist change because maintaining these religious rigid doctrines preserves a patriarchal authority. Historical Islamic societies were more tolerant of diverse sexualities than they are today. Poetry from the golden age of Islam celebrated same-sex love, and scholars did debate on gender and sexuality in very nuanced ways. However, colonial laws and modern conservative interpretation of faith have erased this history. Some religious communities, though, are reclaiming inclusive interpretations of the faith. The existence of queer-friendly mosques that welcome LGBTQ Muslims prove that faith and queerness do not have to be in conflict. In the US, Black liberation theology is another example of an evolution in the interpretation of scripture. This movement has reinterpreted Christian teachings to emphasize justice and liberation rather than submission and oppression. F. Scott Fitzgerald said, "The test of first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. One should be able to see that things are hopeless, yet can be determined to make them otherwise." This is to say, religious beliefs within queer communities deserve respect. Identity is also shaped by wealth and social class. The capitalist world operates on social privilege. Those born into wealth have more opportunities, while those born in poverty must fight for survival. This system upholds the myth of meritocracy, blaming poor people for their struggles while celebrating the wealthy, ignoring that advantages like access to education, generational wealth, and social connection is what shaped their achievements and economic success. By glorifying the rich and shaming the poor, we are reinforcing inequality and dismissing the real barriers to upward mobility like wealth disparities and discrimination. As many women reject traditional roles, there are others who are doubling down and embracing extreme religious practices, not by a means of devotion, but more of a survival mechanism to prove their worth within the system. Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale showcased how women upheld the very structures that harmed them. This phenomenon is called internalized patriarchy, where women and other marginalized groups end up policing other women's action and decisions. These women seek and center their worth around male validation. They suppress their intelligence and ambition not to outshine the men, and they stay silent in male-dominated spaces because they believe that men are inherently leaders under their God-given gender. Long-term, this social conditioning takes a physical toll on the body. Dr. Gabor Mate has linked chronic illnesses that occur in women to years of the emotional burden of constantly prioritizing other people while suppressing healthy anger and enduring oppression to keep the peace in the family unit. What we fail to see is that the patriarchy harms everybody, including men. Rigid gender norms pressure men to suppress their vulnerability, which leads to isolation and mental health struggles. We are aware that there is the existence of the male loneliness epidemic and the rise in incel cultures. For men, you cannot build a community without empathy or vulnerability. In many of the religious spaces, therapy is discouraged in favor of prayer or patience, often leaving people to suffer in silence. The stigma around seeking mental health support in religious spaces is shame in action. This is a manifestation of shame. Your self-doubt and disconnect allows the system to continue existing, ultimately making it harder for everybody to claim space, to celebrate their success, and advocate for their needs. Today, faith stands as both a source of comfort and a mechanism of oppression. These two juxtaposing truths can coexist. Faith can be a form of oppression, and it can also be a source of joy and a source of belonging and identity. Growing up in an environment where religion dictates what is right and wrong leads to internal conflict when these teachings are inflicting harm rather than allowing healing. The trauma of questioning your faith or your religion manifests as guilt, fear of punishment, or alienation from your family and your community. This trauma is a shared burden for women, queer individuals, and even men. When someone in the system breaks free from it, it challenges everybody within that system to re-examine their conditioning and undergo a deconstruction phase. A disclaimer, challenging the existing system does come with a price. The cost of rejecting gender roles, the cost of questioning your religious narratives, or your defying the expectations can be social exile, family rejection, or even violence on your body. Queer Muslims struggle to belong, and their struggle is very complex because many of them face rejection from both their family and religious communities, forcing them to have to choose between parts of themselves. The least we can do as a community is offer safe spaces instead of banishing people. Despite challenges to exist, the experiences of queer Muslims and non-queer Muslims often intersect. Everyone seeks recognition within their community. Everybody wrestles with inherited harmful and useful narratives, and we all yearn for a faith or a religion that feels nurturing rather than punishing. We need to create spaces for authenticity, for questioning, and for healing. We must create spaces, break and dismantle the existing ones to be able to build the new ones. You have to unlearn shame and recognize that your authenticity is not rebellion, it is your truth. True belonging is showing up fully as who you are, with all of your best and not so best parts that make up your identity as a person, no matter how the world will perceive you. What is the reward? Your soul's liberation. For queer Muslims, feminists in conservative cultures, and breaking free from toxic masculinity, for every person who has ever been told that they are too much or they're not enough, this is your reminder. You are not who they told you to be. You decide who you get to become. I will leave you with quotes from two young Muslim women who reflected on what belonging and identity meant to them. Belonging is when people know your heart and your soul and still choose to accept and love you. Being part of my faith and my family will no longer be possible when my identity is out. This is the queer identity. So I wouldn't say I exactly feel like I belong. My parents and those around me hate our community, and I don't think I'll ever be brave enough to face them if I do come out. Another quote, I tell myself that I'll be okay as long as I get to Jannah, but I feel so insecure and miserable having to hold myself back from everything I want to do. My faith remains the same, but I never feel like I ever belonged in the community in the first place. I have gotten used and gotten good at blending in if I have to. I don't speak up about my feelings or my inner thoughts.
I deeply appreciate the openness and reflection shared in those two responses, and the insights contribute meaningfully to the depth and integrity of this conversation.
Thank you for listening to Echoes and Vestiges. In the next part, we will be looking at the cost of exclusion, relationships under the patriarchy.